Now let's start to take a look at actually filling in a unit circle completely. Now, we do know some of these pieces, and what I want to focus on for right now are just these values right in here. That's what we're going to use to fill in our unit circle. So go ahead and disregard the rest of these. So you can pause it and go ahead and see if you can remember how to fill out sine of theta, cosine theta using the 30 degrees and the triangles above. So if you did that, you would have 1/2 for sine of 30, square root of 2 over 2 for sine of 45, and then square root of 3 over 2 for 60 degrees. For cosine, it would be root 3 over 2, root 2 over 2, and 1 over 2. What I want you to start to notice is that there is a pattern. Notice that this is 1, 2, 3, then this is 3, 2, 1. Let's go ahead and try to fill in a unit circle. So here it is. We will fill it out completely. And much of which we're actually going to memorize, what you want to memorize is this first quadrant in here. So we do know that, let's start, this is 0 degrees and then this is 360. And then we know that that could also be 0 radians or 2 pi radians. And just because we've done the quadrantal angles, we know that this point right here, that is x is 1, then y is 0. We also know at the top, that is 90 degrees. 90 degrees, if we convert that, 90 degrees times pi over 180, that will be pi over 2. Pi over 2. So let's start to fill in the rest of these. We know that this value here, that will be our 30 degrees. The next one will be 45 degrees. And the next one will be 60 degrees. And let's go ahead and convert so we can find the radians on the other side. So we have pi over 2. So let's look at 30 degrees. Let's convert that. 30 degrees times pi over 180. So 30 goes into 180 6 times. So it's pi over 6. This is pi over 6. 45 degrees. Let's convert that to radians. 45 over pi over 180. 45 goes in 180 degrees 4 times. So at 45 degrees, that is pi over 4. 60 degrees, let's convert that. 60 degrees divided by pi over 180 degrees, or times pi over 180 degrees. 60 goes in 180 3 times. So just one way to kind of think about this is that it's fractions, right? We see fractions here, and so it's decreasing or increasing. The numbers are increasing, but the size is actually decreasing. So think about this is half of a pi, then this is a third of the pi, so see those 3 pieces. Pi over 4, that's a fourth of a pi. And then pi over 6, that's only a sixth of it, right? So it decreases. So I know that this is 0, 30, 45, and 60. And then when you go this way, it's interesting because it's 6, 4, 3, 2. So one way to kind of think about that. Okay, so let's start filling out more. We know this top point right here, because of our quadrantal angles, that this is x is 0, and then y is 1. So this up here is 0, and this is 1. So we start to take a look at these values here. Let's look at 30 degrees. I'm going to go back to our chart. At sine of 30 degrees, we get 1/2. So this is, cosine. We want to look at cosine. Cosine is x. So cosine of 30 degrees is square root of 30 over 2. So this is square root of 3 over 2. Then our sine of theta of 30 degrees is 1/2. So here is 1/2. 45 degrees, looking at the chart, you can look at it on your paper, this would be square root of 2 over 2 over square root of 2 over 2. So 45 degrees is really nice because it's the same value. Then you have pi over 3. Looking at the table, that should be 1/2 and root 3 over 2. Notice that, again, there is that pattern. So here is 1, then 3, 2, 1, 0, and then for the sine values, 1, square root of 3, 2, 1, and then 0. Let's fill out the rest. So we'll take a look at, let's see, over here, this is going to be 180 degrees. We know that the coordinate point here is going to be x is -1, y is 0. Down below, this would be 270 degrees. And that point down there would be 0, -1, right? 0, -1. Then here at 1/880 degrees, that'll be pi. If all the way rotating around the circle, it's 2 pi. Halfway through should be pi. And then the bottom number down here at 270 degrees, the radians, you can convert that, or think about this. We're going to add, we have 0, pi over 2. Then here, this is 2 pi over 2, or which is just pi. If we had one more half of a pi, that would be 3 pi over 2. So those are the pieces that should be quick to memorize. So we're going to fill out the degrees now. Looking at the degrees, if we have 60 is here, then 90 is here. We're going to do 120. So just add another 30 more. Then you add 15. This will be 135. Another 15 would be 150 degrees. Then at the bottom, you have 180, and then here would be 210. Add 15 to 25 degrees, and add another one for 240 degrees. Then we have 270. Next here we have 300 degrees. Add 15, you get 315 degrees, and here you get 330 degrees. Now there's a pattern when you fill in the radians, and I wouldn't necessarily memorize it. You can just always convert. So, but just so you see this is 2 pi over 3. This is 3 pi over 4. This is 5 pi over 6. And notice how it relates to quadrant 1. Down here, this is 7 pi over 6, 5 pi over 4, and then 4 pi over 3. On the right side, quadrant 4, this is 5 pi over 3, 7 pi over 4, and 11 pi over 6. Again, we'll just convert into radians. I know I see it. I see degrees faster than I can see the radians. Now, the rest of the numbers over here, they actually relate. So you know you see a 3 here and you see a 3 here. The numbers are the same, other than notice that on the quadrant in quadrant 2, all of our x values are going to be negative. Y is still positive. X is negative. So this will be -1/2 root 3 over 2. Next one will be root 2 over 2 over root 2 over 2. Next one will be negative root 3 over 2, and then positive 1/2. And then down at the bottom, you get negative root 3 over 2, and then negative 1/2. So everything is negative, right? Left, the x is negative and the y's are negative, so both are negative. At this 45 or the 225, this is negative root 2 over 2, and then at the pi over 3, this will be negative 1/2, and then negative root 3 over 2. Then it's mirrored on the other side. This time, the other thing that's negative is our y values. So you get positive 1/2 over negative root 3 over 2. This is root 2 over 2, and then negative root 2 over 2, and then this is a root 3 over 2, and negative 1/2. So here is a complete unit circle. We will use that. Again, the only part that I will have you memorize is the first quadrant, because everything else are multiples of this first quadrant. We'll find that out soon. And then I may give you a test too at some point that you'll have to fill out the whole thing. But again, the first quadrant is the one that we want.